Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to take you through Mr. Sprain's assignments from week 1 of closure. Um, and just to clarify, that would be week 1 since we started graded assignments in closure, so after April 14th. To begin this, I'm going to ask that you follow along on your own iPad, so please open up the Plants Google Classroom that Mr. Sprain has created. If he has not shared it with you, please just stop the video right here and send me a quick email or send Mr. Sprain a quick email, and we can make sure that you have access to the classroom. Okay, going on from there, I'm going to scroll down to the Google Slides that Miss Virata had posted for week 1, and I'm going to click on that. Okay, so week 1 is just our introduction to plants. We're going to talk about some of the key features of plants. Looking down here, talking about how plants can reproduce in a variety of ways, sometimes depending on animal behavior and specialized features for reproduction. The other thing that we'll do is construct a scientific explanation based on evidence for how environmental and genetic factors influence the growth of organisms. Okay. There are going to be some different steps to the assignments throughout the weeks. Going through them in the objectives slide, first of all, we'll have to watch the Amoeba's Sisters video to get introduced to the new unit. There is a link to the video on YouTube. However, if you just go down to slide number 4, Ms. Virata has already embedded that within this slideshow, so you can just watch it this way as well. Our second step is going to be to complete the readings in the next slides. So if we go down to slide number 5, and actually slides 5 through 7, there are a few pages from your science textbooks that Ms. Virata and Mr. Sprain have asked you to read. I believe they sent textbooks home with everybody. If it's easier to follow along in the textbook, the pages do start on page 300 if you choose to do that. Otherwise, I'm going to just read through the few pages that they've assigned here and hopefully stop along the way and answer some of the questions that you might have. I'm going to also take some time and point out some keywords. Okay, so section 1 is titled, What is a Plant? Imagine spending a day without plants. What would you eat? It would be impossible to make chocolate chip cookies and many other foods. Without plants, you couldn't eat much. Almost all food is made from plants or from animals that eat plants. Life would be very different without plants. First section in red here, plant characteristics. Plants come in many different shapes and sizes. So what do cactuses, water lilies, ferns, and all other plants have in common? One plant may seem very different from another, but most plants share certain characteristics. Take a look at figure 1. Now, figure 1 is going to be this picture in the bottom left corner. Do you know why this plant is green? Plant cells contain chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is a green pigment that captures energy from sunlight. So I'm going to just stop right there. I think that's a really important point. When we look at plants and we see that green color that comes from plants, that is because of that pigment called chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is found in chloroplasts. Chloroplasts are organelles found in many plant cells and some protists. Plants use energy from sunlight to make food from carbon dioxide and water. This process is called photosynthesis. Now, I hope that's a key word that some of you maybe recognize from past years in science class. Photosynthesis is that really important cycle for how plants make their own food. Last sentence in that section says, because plants make their own food, they are called producers. Moving on from there, the next section is called cuticles. Most plants live on dry land and need sunlight to survive. But why don't plants dry out? Plants are protected by a cuticle. A cuticle is a waxy layer that coats most of the surfaces of plants that are exposed to air. The cuticle keeps plants from drying out. Okay, moving on to the next page. Cell walls. How do plants stay upright? They do not have skeletons like many animals do. Instead, plant cells are surrounded by a rigid cell wall. The cell wall lies outside of the cell membrane as shown in figure 2. Now, I'm going to just stop right there. I want to remind everybody of the Cell City project that we did earlier in the school year. I know several of you maybe had created cell cities that included both a cell wall and a cell membrane. Okay, to continue with the reading. Carbohydrates and proteins in the cell wall form a hard material. Cell walls support and protect the plant cell. Some plant cells also have a secondary cell wall that forms after the cell is mature. When this wall has formed, a plant cannot grow larger. And the last section on this page is called reproduction. Plants have 2 stages in their life cycle: the sporophyte stage and the gametophyte stage. In the sporophyte stage, plants make spores. In a suitable environment, such as damp soil, the spores of some plants grow. These new plants are called gametophytes. During the gametophyte stage, female gametophytes produce eggs, male gametophytes produce sperm. Eggs and sperm are sex cells. Sex cells cannot grow directly into new plants. Instead, a sperm must fertilize an egg. The fertilized egg grows into a sporophyte. The sporophyte makes more spores, so the cycle starts again. Okay, so we had some keywords in that section. A couple of them would be sporophyte and gametophyte. Moving on from here, next page. Plant classification. Although plants share basic characteristics, they can be classified into 4 groups. First, they are classified as non-vascular and vascular plants. Vascular plants are further divided into 3 groups: seedless plants, non-flowering seed plants, and flowering plants. Going to our first section in the blue bolded words, non-vascular plants. Mosses, liverworts, and hornworts are non-vascular plants. A non-vascular plant is a plant that doesn't have specialized tissues to move water and nutrients through the plant. Non-vascular plants depend on diffusion to move materials from one part of the plant to another. Diffusion is possible because non-vascular plants are small. If non-vascular plants were large, the cells of the plant would not get enough water and nutrients. So that's kind of an important feature. Non-vascular plants are quite small. The next section is vascular plants. In the same way that the human body has special tissues to move materials through the body, so do many plants. A plant that has tissues to deliver water and nutrients from one part of the plant to another is called a vascular plant. It's a really important keyword, vascular plants. So they have that tissue that can move water from one part of the plant to another. Okay, to continue reading, right where my cursor is. These tissues are called vascular tissues. Vascular tissues can move water to any part of the plant. So vascular plants can be almost any size. Vascular plants are divided into 3 groups: seedless plants and 2 types of seed plants. Seedless vascular plants include ferns, horsetails, and club mosses. Non-flowering seed plants are called gymnosperms. Flowering seed plants are called angiosperms. The 4 main plants are shown in figure 3. So we have non-vascular plants, and then the 3 types of vascular plants: the seedless plants, and then the 2 types of seeded plants, which would be the non-flowering gymnosperms and the flowering angiosperms. Okay, moving on to our last page of reading. The origin of plants. Imagine that you travel back in time about 440 million years. The Earth seems like a strange, barren, unfriendly place. For one thing, no plants live on land. So, where did plants come from? We'll take a look at figure 4. The photo on the left shows a green algae. The photo on the right shows a fern. The green algae may look like a plant, such as a fern, but it isn't a plant. However, green algae and plants have many similarities. Green algae cells and plant cells have the same kind of chlorophyll. They have similar cell walls. Green algae and plants make their own food through photosynthesis. Both store energy in the form of starch. Starch is another form of sugar, by the way. Like plants, green algae have a two-stage life cycle. Because of these similarities, some scientists think that green algae and plants share a common ancestor. Okay. So, from here, Miss Virata uploaded a Google form or a link to a Google form, and I think that's going to be on slide 3 here. So part of your assignment, step 1 says to submit your responses on the Google form for this week's reading. So I'm going to see if I can open the form here. Okay. So the form will look like this. You have to include like your email address, name, what your science block is. So most of you, I believe, are in block 1. But then there are some questions here. First question talking about non-vascular and vascular plants. Second question talking about gymnosperms and angiosperms. There's a multiple choice question. Which of the following plants is non-vascular? So you'd have to go back and look in the reading. Next question would be what are the four characteristics that all plants share? What do green algae and plants have in common? And finally, to describe the life cycle. Now, you have a couple of options from here. You can either go back and review parts of the video that were from when I went through and read the chapter. Otherwise, I shared with each of you some notes that I took throughout the chapter here. And part of my notes cover the different vocabulary words that are explained throughout the chapter. These are basically the answers that you would need to put in to the Google form that Ms. Virata had assigned. So at this point, you can feel free to even take my answers word for word and put them in there. If you can answer some of them on your own, I really encourage you to do that first, but nevertheless, I wanted to share this document with you to hopefully help you get that Google form answered. Okay. Going back to the Google slide now. We're almost done with this, everybody. The last part that we have to do is in your science journal, document 3 leaves, trees, or flowers from outside. You can draw your plants in your science notebook, take a picture of your plant, and then upload your favorite picture and your name and your description to this shared Google Doc. So we'll open that up now. And looking here, a few of your classmates have already done that. It looks like Aya and Aria have already uploaded some descriptions of their plants. There's some pictures here as well. Okay. And that is going to wrap it up for the plants unit for week 1. Please let me know if you have any questions. You can call me, give me a text, send me an email if you have any questions at any point throughout this presentation. Otherwise, I hope you found it helpful, and I look forward to not just hearing from you, but I plan